Hi guys, so for today's True Crime and Tutorial Tuesday I'm talking about Sabrina and Ursula Eriksson whilst doing my makeup, so if you want to know more about their bizarre case and see me create this makeup look, then be sure to carry on watching. Sabrina Eriksson and her identical twin sister Ursula Eriksson were born in Sweden on the 3rd of November 1967. In their youth, there was no apparent history of mental health issues or criminal convictions, and by 2000 Ursula was living in the United States and Sabina was living in Ireland with her partner and 2 children. Ursula visited Sabina on Friday the 16th of May 2008, but for reasons that were unclear the sisters secretly departed Sabina's home for Liverpool. They arrived in Liverpool at 8:30 on Saturday and went to St Anne Street police station, apparently in order to report concerns over the safety of Sabina's children. So Liverpool police contacted Dublin to follow up the request, learning that Sabina had had a fight with her partner the previous night. At around 11:30 that morning, the pair boarded a National Express coach headed to London. A police report stated that the twins suddenly disembarked from the bus at Keele Services, a motorway service station, as they were not feeling well. The driver of the bus, however, said that he left them at Keele Services even though it was not a scheduled stop at around 1 PM after becoming suspicious of their erratic behaviour. He noticed the twins clinging to their bags tightly and did not let them reboard because they refused to let him search their bags for illegal items. The manager of the service station was informed and also feeling suspicious of the pair's demeanour, movements and fixation on their bags, she called the police. So officers arrived to talk to them but left after saying that the women seemed harmless. So, captured on CCTV cameras, the pair departed the services on foot and began to walk down the central reservation of the M6 before attempting to cross it, causing chaos to the traffic and picking up minor injuries in the attempt, and Sabina was hit by oncoming traffic. Their older brother claimed in a Swedish newspaper that his sisters were fleeing from maniacs who were chasing them. Highway agency officers responded to the incident and police from the Central Motorway Police Group were called to assist, and the officers were accompanied by a small television crew who happened to be filming the show Motorway Cops, which went with the officers. And if you don't know if you're not familiar with that show, it's basically what it says, you know, traffic police, you know, the main bits in the name. Miraculously, both of these sisters survived despite all their injuries. Ursula was immobilised as the lorry had crushed her legs, and Sabina spent 15 minutes unconscious.
No, come on, my love, come on, you've hit your head, calm down. We are the police, we are the police.
Emergency workers and several members of the public caught up with her, and she was restrained and carried into an ambulance, at which point she was handcuffed and sedated. And given the similarity in their behaviours, a suicide pact or drug use was quickly suspected. So Ursula was taken to hospital by air ambulance, and she was sectioned under the Mental Health Act and held for 3 months of assessment. Sabina was taken to hospital where, despite her ordeal and apparent lack of concern over her sister's injuries, she became calmer and controlled and was released just 5 hours later. So there's footage of Sabina in the police station, and it shows her acting very differently than her alarming antics on the time in custody. Sabina never once asked about her sister Ursula, And on 19th of May 2008, Sabina was released from court without full psychiatric evaluation, having pleaded guilty to the charges of trespass on the motorway and hitting a police officer. The court sentenced her to 1 day in custody, which she'd already been deemed to serve, having spent a full night in police custody. Leaving court, Sabina began to wander the streets of Stoke-on-Trent, trying to locate her sister in hospital and carrying her possessions in a clear plastic bag, which was given to her by police. She was also wearing her sister's green top. At 7 p.m, 2 local men spotted Sabina while they were walking a dog on Christchurch Street, Fenton. One of the men was 54-year-old Glenn Hollinshead, a self-employed welder, qualified paramedic and former RAF airman, and the other was his friend Peter Malloy. Sabina appeared friendly and stroked the dog as the three struck up a conversation. Although friendly, Sabina appeared to be behaving nervously, which worried Peter. Sabina asked the 2 men for directions to any nearby bed and breakfasts or hotels. Glenn took pity upon her and instead offered to take her back to his house at nearby Duke Street. Sabina accepted and relaxed as she began to relate how she was trying to locate her hospitalised sister. Back at Glenn's house over drinks, her odd behaviour continued as she constantly got up and looked out the window, leading Peter to assume that she'd run away from an abusive partner. She appeared paranoid as well, offering the men cigarettes only to quickly snatch them away out of their mouths, claiming that they might be poisoned. And shortly before midnight, Peter left and Sabina stayed the night. The next day around midday, Glenn called his brother regarding local hospitals in order to locate Sabina's sister Ursula. At 7:40 p.m, while a meal was being prepared, Glenn left the house to ask a neighbour for tea bags and then went back inside. 1 minute later, he staggered back outside, now bleeding, and told him, "She stabbed me," before collapsing to the ground and quickly dying from his injuries. As the neighbour dialed 999, Sabina fled the premises and was caught on the run by near CCTV. She ran out the house with a hammer, periodically hitting herself over the head with it. So a passing motorist saw this and decided to tackle her in an attempt to take control of the hammer. Whilst wrestling with him, Sabina screamed and took a roof towel out of her pocket and struck him on the back of the head with it, stunning him temporarily. By this time, paramedics had found her and gave chase. The pursuit ended at Heron Cross when Sabina jumped from a 12-metre high bridge onto the A50. She broke both her ankles and fractured her skull in the fall, so she was taken to hospital. On June the 6th of 2008, she was arrested whilst recovering at the University Hospital of North Staffordshire and was discharged in a wheelchair on the 11th of September 2008, at which point she was taken into custody and charged with murder the same day. Ursula was also released from hospital in September and relocated uneventfully back to Sweden and then to the US without any charges. The trial was scheduled for February 2009 but adjourned after the court encountered difficulties in obtaining her medical records from Sweden. So then the trial was rescheduled to start on the 1st of September 2009, which is actually my birthday. Sabina pleaded guilty to manslaughter with diminished responsibility on the 2nd of September 2009. At no point during her interrogation or during the trial did she explain her actions, only replying no comment to extensive police questioning. Similarly, at no time was the video from the M6 used in court, which I thought was quite odd. You know, you'd think if they've got video evidence they would use it, because normally you don't have video evidence, or if they do have video evidence, then they do normally use that in their trial. Both the prosecution and defence claim that Sabina was insane at the time of the killing, although she had become sane again by the time of her trial. The defence counsel in the trial claimed that she was a secondary sufferer of folie à deux, which is a French term for a madness of two, influenced by the presence or perceived presence of her twin sister, who was the primary sufferer. The court also heard that she had suffered from a rare psychological disorder which made her hear voices but could not interpret what they said, as well as an alternative theory that she had suffered from acute polymorphic delusional disorder. But Sabina was sentenced to 5 years in prison and sent to Bronzefield Women's Prison, where she turned to Christianity. Having already spent 439 days in custody before sentencing, this left her first eligible for release in 2011, and she was released in 2011, but her current whereabouts are unknown. There's a lot of theories surrounding this case, so I thought I would include some because some of them are pretty wild. So the first one is obviously what she was diagnosed with, which was the shared psychosis, and that was the plea that Sabina's legal team entered in court. It would seem that this is the most probable explanation and it's the official line on the case, but let's discuss some alternative theories. Their older brother claims his sisters were running away from men. Like I said earlier, he claimed that to the newspapers. He said it was because they were trying to gang rape them. The only people that were shown to be at the scene were the twins, the police, the TV crew, and passing traffic, so there was no other people about. Another theory is that there may have been someone else who committed Glenn's murder along with Sabina, as his stab wounds suggest more than one weapon was used in the murder, and Sabina was left-handed and 2 of the stab wounds were on the left side of Glenn's body, whereas you'd think they'd be on the right side with her being left-handed. And Glenn didn't have any defensive wounds, which could suggest that someone was holding him down while Sabina was stabbing him. A couple of days after the murder, Sabina's belongings were found in the neighbourhood, but her phone and laptop and money that she was carrying on her were not found, which possibly suggests that Glenn's murder was a robbery gone wrong. However, after Glenn had been stabbed, he did say, "She stabbed me," whereas if multiple people or more than just Sabina was involved, surely he would say "they stabbed me" instead of "she stabbed me." So that obviously goes against this theory. It's been suggested by David McCann, the author of the book A Madness Shared by Two, that Sabina's partner in Ireland was part of a drug trafficking ring. He believes that authorities in the UK had the twins under observation due to links with the gang, and a path as clear as possible was being made to keep them out of the legal system, allowing the security services to maintain their observations. Added to the fact, despite Sabrina's actions, she was detained for such a short time, it must be noted that neither of the Eriksson twins tested positive for any narcotic substances upon admission after the M6 incident, but there is drugs that leave your system quicker, so whether they were on something or not, there's no evidence that they were, but it is still a possibility. Obviously their behaviour was very, very bizarre. The next theory is MK Ultra mind control. So this one's more of a bit of an out there one that, is unlikely, but it is such an odd, case that you think anything can kind of be possible. Conspiracy site Red Ice Radio offers up this theory that the sisters could have been subject to a government mind control program. Although this does seem like a bit of a half-baked theory, it's now known that the CIA had a top secret project running for many years that did just that. Images that worked as triggers were often implanted in subjects' minds, and could the bright high-vis fluorescent jackets of the police have set something off within the twins. Twins share a unique physiological bond that's said to border on telepathic. Due to the twins being so close, there have been many instances over time of suicide pacts, with one not wanting to be left alone if their sibling was to pass away. Had the Eriksson twins agreed on a pact between themselves, the traffic event would point something along these lines. The final theory is definitely the craziest out of them all, and probably the least likely one, but it is that the twins were alien hybrids. Odd behaviour can easily be explained away, but both survive in multiple incidents that, with any right, should have left them dead is, you know, very strange. To say that, you know, both of them made it out fine. The lorry that struck Ursula was reported to be travelling at 55 miles per hour down the motorway, which would be a blow that would have proved fatal to most. And similar with Sabina, she was hit by a vehicle before springing to her feet to fight police, and she also survived a 40-foot drop onto concrete after murdering Glenn when she jumped off the bridge. Could the twins have been genetically superior hybrids? Either way, they're definitely made of tough stuff to have survived everything that they did. I just think it must have been horrible for any of the people, you know, the lorry driver and the people on the motorway to, you know, accidentally run over these women. Must have been so traumatic to experience, you know, someone coming out of the blue like that. I just think it's awful. It is, you know, so odd that they were both able to fully recover from it all, and that there's no one's really come out with a full explanation for their behaviour, which is why there are some pretty mad conspiracy theories surrounding this, and that's why I wanted to include them in this video, because obviously it's a weird, mysterious case that no one apart from those two women really know what happened. Out of all these conspiracy theories, which one do you think is the most plausible? Which one do you think, you know, may be what actually happened to them? Ursula has since changed her name. It's still her name, I'm pretty sure, but just spelled differently. Because obviously I don't think she really wants to remember this time. You know, it must be quite a weird thing to have experienced. Unlike Sabina, who her whereabouts are unknown, and there's so many rumours and speculations around where she is. She was only sentenced to 5 years, which she then didn't even serve the full time anyway, so I think she got off fairly lightly. Obviously she wasn't alright in the head. Still, 5 years for killing someone isn't very long at all. She didn't even end up serving the full sentence anyway. So Glenn's family understandably weren't very happy with, you know, that fact, which you can understand because that is mad, really. Neither of the twins have like reoffended or anything, you know, there's nothing major come out about either of them. So like I said, the whereabouts of Sabina is very wishy-washy. Literally pretty much every source I read said something different, so, you know, it's hard to know. And bear in mind that she was released in 2011, it's now 2021, so she could have been and moved around quite a few places in that time. One thing I would have thought Sabina would want to do is, you know, go back to her husband and her children. So, you know, she was living in Ireland before everything happened, so she possibly could have gone back there. Yeah, there is this theory of her being Ursula's au pair as well, which over in Sweden, which, you know, is also a possibility. Obviously the police were, you know, at blame as well, because they should have kept Sabina in longer than they did, and have actually done a psychiatric evaluation and all that sort of thing on her, especially with the way she was acting. And if they'd actually done this, then it would have prevented Glenn's death as well. The police do have to be held, you know, somewhat accountable for failing in that way. Had the police actually done what they were supposed to do, it would have been quite a different turnout for Glenn and Sabina. So the case of the Eriksson twins is kind of destined to remain a mystery unless either of them, you know, do in the future come out and say their reasoning or what happened for their actions that day, but that seems very unlikely. So that's everything I've got on this case. I hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.